Ragu alla bolognese is an absolute essential sauce for pasta or lasagna in just about every Italian household out there. Now, every house may have their own take on it with slight variations, but all are ridiculously delicious. I'm going to use a few classic cooking techniques to try and pull out as much flavor as I can to make an insanely tasty ragu that I know my family's going to love. We're going to start off by knocking out some prep. Sound good? Let's cook. All right, my homies, I have a 2-pound cut of beef chuck. This comes from the upper shoulder into the lower neck area of the cow. It has wonderful beef flavor, and what I'm looking for from the grocery store when I purchase it is that it is bright red in color, no discoloration anywhere, has wonderful intermuscular fat, and a nice fat cap around the outside and running through the center. Other great options are brisket or short ribs. All right, let's cut this thing up. Paging Dr. Chef Parisi, he is in the house. Now what we're gonna do is remove it from the plate onto the cutting board. I wanna start by removing any of that stringy fat known as caul fat. It doesn't cook down really well, so we're just gonna trim that off. Now, it's time to finely mince the beef. And there's no perfect way to do this, but how I do it is start by thinly slicing it, then taking those thinly slices and sort of julienning it, and then turning it again and finally mincing it as best as I can. And if you happen to find any more of that caul fat while mincing it, be sure to remove it. Then I run my knife over it again 1 to 2 more times till essentially it resembles ground beef. Instead though, they are small, fine minced pieces. We're gonna set those to the side, give the cutting board a quick rinse, and if you really wanna take this to the next level, check out my cowboy burger recipe where I cut up and grind brisket, short rib, and chuck together for an unbelievable ground beef blend. And of course, if you don't want to do any of this, prepackaged 80% lean to 20% fat ground chuck will work perfectly in this recipe. I'm guessing you're going to opt for this. Next up, I have 2 pounds of pork belly. There's really not a great substitute for this, and this obviously comes from the belly area of the pig. What I'm looking for is that it is bright pink and red in color with no discoloration anywhere and has a wonderful amount of intermuscular fat and a fat cap running through the middle and on the top. Just going to run my knife on the steel a little bit to sort of recreate that edge. We are going to cut this in the exact same way as the beef. We want to fine mince it, so thinly slice it, julienne it, and then finally mincing it, running your knife over 1 or 2 more times, again until it resembles ground pork. Instead, they are fine minces. But if you don't want to do any of this, yes, you can absolutely purchase prepackaged ground pork, no problem. Going to wash the cutting board up 1 more time with soap and water. Now let's head over to the cooktop with the minced beef, and I have a 10-quart or 2.5-gallon rondeau pot. You need at least a 2-gallon or 8-quart pot. It can be stainless steel or a Dutch oven would work fantastic. Now I'm going to add in 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm turning the heat to high until the oil begins to lightly smoke. Then I'm adding in our minced beef. And of course I'm going to be using a wooden spoon. I'm making an Italian sauce. You got to use a wooden spoon. Immediately spread the beef all over the pan, completely covering it. That's why I love the rondeau, because it has such a large surface area. We are going to let it cook for exactly 2 minutes. Then we're going to come back and give it a stir and cook it for maybe 3 to 4 more minutes, or until the minced beef is completely cooked and has a little bit of a sear on there. That little Maillard brown crust we're going to get on there is just going to further enhance the flavor of our sauce. We're going to set all the cooked beef to the side in a bowl, return that pot, then grab your minced pork. We're going to add it right in there. Now you're going to notice that I'm not going to add any additional olive oil. This pork belly is going to render a good amount of fat, which we're also going to cook some vegetables in. So just like the beef, spread the pork out as best you can, covering all the bottom of the pan. Let it cook for exactly 2 minutes. Come back and begin to stir everything around. Now what we want to do to render all this fat is turn the heat down to low medium. It's going to take about 10 to 12 minutes for this to happen. In the meantime though, we can get to prepping. I have 2 large yellow or Spanish onions. You could also use sweet white or red, although I think yellows are best. I want to finely mince these, so after I small dice them, I'm going to run my knife over 1 or 2 more times to have a nice mince. This will come to a total of about 3 cups. We're going to add it to the bowl, head over to our cooktop. Let's have a look at our pork. You can see it's rendered a good amount of fat. This is gold, my friends, because we're going to cook the vegetables in there. So let's swap out the wooden spoon for a slotted spoon, take all the pork belly out of there, and just add it to the bowl with the cooked ground beef. Now returning back over to our pan, again, remember over low to medium heat, add in all the onions, and we are going to take the time to caramelize these up. This is going to take 45 to 60 minutes, and after those initial first few stirs, we're going to turn the heat down to low. Great timing though, because we got a few more things to prep up. I've got 3 medium to large size carrots. You can peel them or give them a really good rinse. I slice off the ends, slice them in half. Then what I want to do is thinly slice them, then take those slices and thinly julienne those, turn them, and then small dice them. And just like the beef and the pork, I'm going to take my knife and run them over 1 to 2 more times until I get them as finely minced as possible. It does not need to be perfect, okay? And you'll get roughly 2 cups of these fine minced carrots. I'm going to take a quick pause here and check on my onions. I like to come back every 10 to 15 minutes, see how they're doing, and give them a quick stir. Heading back over to my cutting board, I have 8 ribs of celery in the exact same manner of the meat and the carrots. We want to finely mince these up. So slice them in half, thinly slice them, then turn them and small dice them, running the knife over 1 to 2 more times to get a nice fine mince. Perfect. And you should get about 2 cups of this celery after it's finely minced. If you're plus or minus a tablespoon or 2, do not sweat it. It's no problem. It's not going to alter the recipe in any way. And if you want to, you can add the carrots and the celery straight to a food processor and save a ton amount of time. That part is up to you. But regardless, I'm going to add the celery right to my finely minced carrots into a bowl. Next, I have 4 total garlic cloves. We're going to give them a smash, a fine mince, set them to the side. The chopping is done for now. We're heading back over to our cooktop. We're going to give them a stir. They're nice and golden brown. It's been about 15 minutes. Give them a try. They are fantastic.
And hands down, a really big chef tip is to take the time to caramelize these onions. The flavor that will come from it is excellent and will further enhance the overall taste of our ragu. It is so important. This is a weekend recipe, a Sunday sauce recipe. This isn't something you try to throw together on a Tuesday, okay? And remember, sauce gets better with time, but take the time to caramelize the onions. I can't say it enough.
Now let's go ahead and add in the celery and carrots. We're going to bump the heat from low up to medium. Then what we want to do is just give it a light seasoning of coarse salt and freshly cracked black pepper. Help draw out some of that moisture and enhance the flavor, of course. Then we're just going to saute this for in between 10 and 12 minutes. We want the vegetables to be nice and tender. At this stage, we're going to stir in the garlic. It's only going to take about 30 to 45 seconds for the garlic to cook, or once it becomes fragrant and you notice the smell, it's done. Again, try it. Make sure you're at the right stage. They should be tender with a very small bite to it. Now I'm adding in my cooked minced beef, minced pork. We are going to stir this in until the vegetables and the meat are completely combined. Now for a game changer. Got a few things to add in here. 2 bay leaves and then 4 whole cloves. I'm telling you, do not skip these ingredients. The smells and flavors that come from these just remind me of my grandma's sauce. Incredible. Stir those in, and then it's time to deglaze with wine. You definitely have options here. A good dry red wine like a Merlot, Cabernet, or a Sangiovese, or even a white wine is fantastic. Make sure it's dry, a Pinot Grigio, Chardonnay. You be the judge here. And I'm going for the red wine. I'm going to add in 2 total cups. We want to cook it down until sec or almost gone and absorbed into the other ingredients. To do this, I'm just going to crank the heat on to high. It's going to take in between 4 to 5 minutes for it to be absorbed while frequently stirring. And speaking of stirring, you better check yourself because every single person puts their other hand on their hip while doing this. Definitely don't forget to notice this the next time you're hanging over a pot for a little while. It's hilarious. Alrighty, the wine looks to be absorbed. You can't see it anywhere. Now it's time to add in some tomatoes. I love San Marzano tomatoes. They're nice and sweet, not too acidic, and to ensure they're from the San Marzano region, it needs to say DOP on here, which translates to Protected Designation of Origin. Of course, regular whole peeled tomatoes will work as well. I have 2 28-ounce cans, which I'm going to crush by hand right into the pot with the beef and the vegetables in there. Then once they are all crushed, I'm just going to pour the remaining juice from the can in there, and then immediately add in 1.5 cups of good beef stock. I've got a fantastic homemade recipe if you want to check this out. Obviously, you can see that this is going to make a lot of sauce. There's a lot of prep, and this takes a minute to make, so I want to ensure I can enjoy it for several meals. So freezing any leftovers is an awesome option. I'm going to stir all of those ingredients together until they are combined. And honestly, at this stage, now that everything's together, I'm going to put my spoon in there and give it a little try. I have to.
And the smells in here, seriously, already incredible. Now, don't forget to taste things throughout the process to know where you're at. Making sure the vegetables are tender, that it's properly seasoned. Also, it helps to enjoy the cooking process, okay? Sometimes when you're stirring over pot for 3 hours, it can get really mundane, but if you get to taste things, you get to automatically start to see like, this is going to be a very good sauce. And the smiles that are gonna come from this around the table are going to be epic. That's why we do this. That's why we cook for smiles. And this sauce is going to do that and get some amazing conversation started around the dinner table.
I'm going to grab a spatula real quick and run it around the outside of that pan. There's all that fond, that goodness that's been cooked on there. Let's put that into the sauce because why not? Adding a lid, simmering over low heat for about 3 total hours. And I'm going to come back every hour just to give it a little look, maybe try it out a little bit, see where we're at. Starting to cook down, fantastic. Then after that 3-hour total time period, I'm going back over there. It's nice and cooked down. It's thick, amazing. Now I'm going to blow your mind a little bit. If you've never seen this, I'm sorry. I'm adding in 2 cups of whole milk. You could also use half and half. This is going to add an incredible amount of richness to our sauce. And oh, is it good. Stir it in there until combined. And this next part is optional, but I'm going to add in 1 sprig of fresh rosemary. You could also instead use 6 to 8 leaves of fresh basil. I'm going to give it a light season with coarse salt and fresh cracked black pepper. We're going to give it a quick stir and let it cook for between 60 to 90 minutes over low heat and let those flavors concentrate even more.
All right, we're getting close here. Just a little bit more time. And whenever I think of sauce and pasta, I always think of serving it up with a delicious salad. And no one made better salads in my family than my grandma or my aunts, especially Aunt Carol, the best dressing around. I'm going to run out to my garden and grab a few things, and I'm going to show you how I make an Italian-style salad, Chef Billy Parisi style, of course, to serve up alongside this amazing Bolognese sauce with pasta.
It's definitely the tail end of the garden season, but hey, I've got a few cucumbers, so I'm snagging some of those, and the fresh San Marzano tomatoes are still booming, so I'm grabbing those as well. I'm going to be using romaine lettuce, just giving it a quick rinse, and then I'm just going to roughly chop it. Now, if you don't plan to serve this salad for several hours, I recommend just tearing it by hand because it cuts along the natural veins of the lettuce and will decrease the browning that can take place from oxidation. Next, I'm going to julienne 1 red bell pepper. Then I'm going to make quarter cut slices into about half of that cucumber, doing the same knife cut for 6 of those San Marzano tomatoes, adding them to the bowl along with a few sliced red onions. All of these ingredient amounts are completely up to you. In addition, I'm going to add about a half cup of sliced pepperoncinis. Then I have a quarter cup each of castelvetrano and black olives we're going to add in there. Then I'm just going to put it in the refrigerator until I'm ready to pull it out and serve it. And now we have a little bit more time, so let's talk pasta. You can absolutely roll out fresh. I've got a great homemade recipe for you. And I like a wider pasta, like a pappardelle. And if you don't want to use fresh, you can absolutely use a good dried pasta. And the type is completely up to you. Maybe you like angel hair. You be the judge. It's been about 75 minutes or so. I'm heading back over to my pot, giving it a stir. It is so thick, rich, and delicious. I'm adding in my final seasonings of coarse salt and fresh cracked black pepper, mixing them together and having a taste. Yep, it is right on. Now let's cook the pasta. I have a large pot of boiling salted water. I'm adding in my pappardelle. Now fresh pasta usually takes in between 90 seconds and 2 minutes to cook. That's it, but you're going to need to frequently stir it so things don't get stuck. Going to drain it, and then to toss the pasta, I'm adding it to a large 12-inch stainless steel pan. Honestly, any pan will work. Then what I'm going to do is add on a few ladles of my Bolognese sauce. And because I want to, I'm going to sprinkle on a little Parmigiano Reggiano right over the top. Then using that same spatula, I'm going to mix everything until it is completely coated.
So much goodness. Now, to me, this is comfort in a pan. This is what I grew up on. Takes me right back to my childhood. The flavors, the smells, everything. Using classical cooking techniques makes amazing food and always the best memories. Let me show you how I plate up this pasta bolognese and, of course, my Italian-style salad.
Now you can serve up this pasta bolognese on a plate or in a bowl. You can absolutely be the judge, but I like to spoon on a lot more of that sauce. Gosh, is it rich and delicious. Then I'm going to finish with a little more Parmigiano Reggiano and onto the salad. I'm going to sprinkle on 1 teaspoon of dry oregano, then season up with coarse salt and fresh cracked black pepper. I'm pouring in 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar to the outside of the bowl. I'll explain in a minute. Then a quarter cup of extra virgin olive oil to the outside of the bowl. Then using a large fork and spoon, I'm going to completely mix the salad. When the dressing's around the outside, it allows for all the vegetables and leafy greens to be completely coated in that dressing. Then I'm just going to serve it up in a bowl and finish it with a little more fresh grated Parmigiano. And I can't tell you how much it means to me to be able to share this meal with my family and friends. Being able to connect with them, hear about their day, know what's going on in their lives is just so important to me. This is a good thing, and I hope I get to do it a lot more often.
Yeah, that's good.
Call your family, call your friends for this one. Only problem is they may not want to leave after they taste this. I have a feeling they will love it. Now, if you're really into tomato style sauces, you have to check out my Pomodoro recipe. It's simple, it's delicious. You will love it. I've got a great recipe video. See you on there.